order. Is there any changes or additions to the?
Don't forget the 7 o'clock is the.
Oh, that's right, wait, that's right, we're doing the hearing first, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay. Never mind,
get ahead of yourself.
I don't have, no, here it is.
Emily Latilla, never mind.
Okay, we'll bring the public hearing to order. Reference public statement input on the enhanced energy plan. This is the first hearing of 2,
Yes.
and our second hearing will be held at March meeting, right? Regular March meeting?
Yes.
Lacking any comments from the public, we'll close the hearing. Thank you all for attending. Now,
Shouldn't you leave it, you got 10 minutes.
you're probably right.
We gotta wait 10 minutes for someone to show up.
Technically, I think you do.
Technically, our agenda doesn't start in 10 minutes, so we should at least give it a few more minutes.
So that means that you don't start ours.
Right.
It doesn't mean you can't close the other.
Right. So we're in a recess now.
So you're free to leave.
So who wants more storage?
That's right, you could recess it, and go about our business, then if somebody shows up, then you could open it again.
Really, we can't open our meeting until 7:10.
Okay,
The other one, we close
Yeah.
unless somebody shows up, we can reopen.
all right.
Well, just sit back and relax a few minutes. We got a few changes on the additions on the agenda.
So what's the snow gonna do for Sugar?
Oh, it's gonna be horrible. Most of my main lines are buried,
Yeah.
I mean, under the snow. They're about shoulder high during the summer. You guys must have run into the same thing.
Yep, Ira just sent me a photo.
Just an incredible snow year. I mean, the difference between the village and where we live, we haven't lost anything that's come, and we're 2 feet over normal. So,
And it's still February.
it's still February, our big snow month's coming. So,
Better not.
it's gonna be a very, very difficult year, because when sugaring comes, it'll come based on the weather, not based on the snow depth. We'll just be slogging through all that snow. So,
You have to dust off your snowshoes.
I have to dust off my snowshoes, yeah. I'm not in too big a hurry yet, because looking at the long range,
It's not gonna run anyways.
it's not gonna run for at least 4 weeks. It's not gonna really run. You know, these guys,
They've had one boil already.
Yeah, but that's trees thawing out from what was in them in November. That's not really sap running
No.
out of the ground.
No,
Yeah,
most of their
that's-
lines are buried also.
It's you big guys, and I've got several big customers that have done the same thing. When sap comes down the pipes, you either gotta make a decision, open the valves and let it go, or do something with it. And the way last year's production was, despite what everyone says, the way last year's production was, almost everybody is trying to make syrup out of that sap.
I can't, it's already,
They don't
it
have
already went
enough.
out to publish. I can't make the change to the,
Well, I gave it to you almost immediately.
Oh, you're.
you did, but it had already,
Yeah.
it had gone out to
I
publish
see
at
your
that point.
Facebook posts for,
Did you try to contact him or anything?
I did.
You did,
I went up to.
because you're missing Mike Darling and another one.
Yesterday.
We'll have to,
And other Democrat, there's a
Phenomenal.
Democrat and a Republican.
Snow.
we'll have to issue the correction
It's just saying.
at town meeting.
I mean, I got 4 feet of snow in my driveway.
Yeah.
I had to have Peter come with a front end loader and blow it out, because my tractor won't start, so. And the banks that he made are just stupid. You know, we haven't lost any snow since it first started falling. So,
Made me happy that I'm using a snow blower.
yeah. I'd like one on the front of my tractor, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So, it's gonna be a rough year, and this spring's gonna be rough, and lots of lots of people who may be down in lower lands and not seeing that much snowpack might be surprised at what the brooks do this year.
Hello. Hi.
Hi,
Hi.
how's it going?
We're just holding tight. Our agenda doesn't start till 7:10, so we're just spinning our wheels a little bit. We did have a public hearing for the enhanced energy plan, if you guys had any comments on that.
Charles is here.
Free energy?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're not talking teenagers.
Right.
Charles, did you want to add comment to the enhanced energy plan?
We're soliciting your input.
You really want it?
Yes.
Waste of time, and we got no input from the local utilities, so I can write a plan without input from the co-op or the village. But if you want the standing, I guess you have to do it. Not that anybody's gonna, there's no transmission capacity to site anything in our territory, so it was a waste of time. And money.
So, we got a minute still. Charles, Doug and I testified to the State House about rural broadband extension.
Which bills?
Energy Committee.
I know the committee, but which bill? There's a lot of bills.
We just talked about why we need it.
It was, they were discussing I think it was 192. Also I had a comment on H95. I think it was 192 was the,
Well, there's one bill that we can put the fiber on telephone poles and the power pole. That's one bill. There's another bill that would allow us to issue general obligation bills, general obligation bonds to finance it. I don't think that's something the town would be too interested in doing at this time.
no, our comments were much more basic about,
And I understand that the Vermont League of Towns and
Cities and towns.
and those people are watching those bills also.
yeah.
But they should be, they're probably watching a whole lot of other things too.
Well, they organized the testimony for this, you know, they asked for underserved towns to have people to testify.
Well, I talked to the Department of Public Utilities, or whatever they're called, the department as opposed to the board that sets the rates, and they said Johnson has over 70% Comcast.
That's what I found out.
So
We-
we're
We,
theoretically very well served.
we are
It's
not
just-
considered an underserved town.
Oh, that's 10%, that's, yeah, we're not an underserved town by any means, but you and I, you have availability to Comcast. You two certainly, I don't know about, Mike, do you have Comcast out where you live?
No, Mike doesn't have it.
No,
Because it goes down Collins Hill. But,
I have DSL through,
got your DSL. But fiber is, it's over 70%, which gives us an economic problem. Serving the last mile. You out there in the wilderness,
Mark, in prepping for this, I called Mark Woodward. He was in San Antonio for the co-op, attending, looking specifically at broadband. He said co-ops are doing broadband all over the country,
except here.
and they are, and the messages run them right through Comcast territory.
Yeah, they have to, we talked.
Because, to take their customers.
Easier said than done. We talked to EC Fiber today. We had a couple-hour meeting with them. And also the state guy at the Department of Public Services. We can get maybe a quarter of Comcast customers Because if Comcast wants to compete with us, they'll just cut the price, and Vermonters are fairly price sensitive. Not totally, fairly price sensitive. We can probably pick up some of the larger businesses, but maybe not. And one of the things that Comcast offers that EC Fiber, which we're kind of using as our model, does not offer, they don't offer television. They do have voice over internet protocol, but they don't have landlines per se, telephone. So people that are like the convenience of one-stop shopping will stick with Comcast just for that reason. So there's, you can build over Comcast, or I don't really consider.
So we're gonna have cut off this discussion.
Yeah, because we're coming
It's
back
time to meet, start the select board meeting. Bring the meeting to order. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Yes, I've got 3 additions. We've received notice of resignations on a couple different committees. I'd like to inform the board of those. The Vermont River Conservancy was asking for a letter of support. I want to inform the board about that. And we've received a request from Cambridge for a resolution around their school merger situation.
And we also got the Historical Society going for a grant and looking for our acceptance on it. Also, I'll give a quick update on the Silver Jacket at Krell. We didn't get the funding, and
Nat had a question about the status of the merger study.
merger study, okay. And I want to add to item 6, the planning for the meeting on the 25th, also talk about the appointment meeting after town meeting, if we want to do it on Wednesday or Monday. And if no objections, I would ask that we rearrange our order of the agenda for the treasurer's report when Rosemary gets here. She's at the annual school board or school meeting. Any other additions or changes? Seeing none. Is the board prepared to approve the meeting minutes for January 21st and the 28th?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Is your tape recorder on?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just noticed Donna wasn't here, so got nervous.
Any more discussion on those meeting minutes? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, do you have any report for Brian?
Not too much.
He wasn't gonna be here, right?
He's unable to make it based on the hours that they've been working lately. He needed the time to sleep. We've been over the highway budget as it stands right now. We're within the increased margin that we set for the highway department, where, if you recall, when we were looking at end of year budget, we funneled basically anything that we could spare into the highway department. It doesn't look like we're going to exceed that, but it also doesn't look like we're gonna recapture much.
Good. A discussion Brian and I had, and he passed on to Brian Krause, is making sure that Jason does not work on town meeting day. Because if he did, if we forced him to work, he lost the election, there could be certainly the insinuation that we were trying to determine the outcome of an election. So it's best that he just does not work that day.
I do want to be clear that we are not scheduling Jason, and we are offering him that he does not have to attend. We're not forbidding him from working that day or anything, but if he,
But he gets paid anyways, it's one of our holidays.
yeah, he has it as a day off,
Yeah.
and if there's a call out for that day, barring some extreme emergency, he is not required to work that day.
Okay, so
Even on a regular call out, he is
the
not
direction of
required to
Brian will
attend.
be not to call.
Yes.
Right. Is there any disagreement or concern with that?
That was good thinking, whoever come up with that.
Well, there was a little bit of, you wouldn't want that on the front page of the Free Press, that Johnson Selectboard tried to determine the outcome of an election.
But you want to be fair to him, so I think it's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Anything else from his report that he's probably been busy plowing and sanding and all that?
Yeah.
Anybody else got anything they want to add? Questions? Okay, Dave, you got the floor.
Okay, so river corridors, and I had asked Phil to be here, but he's not. Might be some details that are a little sketchy. Basically, after Hurricane Irene, the state legislature adopted the river corridor statutes that we saw on previous maps. And those statutes apply to any Act 248 or 250 application. Basically, any application that requires state approval will be subject to those statutes. They did that in a general blanket and nobody knew about it. So those exist. We finally found out in one of the last meetings with Stacy Pomeroy that in order for Johnson to adopt those river corridors, it's actually adopting another set of zoning bylaws. The Planning Commission is not really in favor of that. One of the biggest issues we see is that things are changing very, very rapidly. The definitions of a river corridor and the maps are changing. Charles, you can kick in if you want. We don't see any clear-cut definitions of what a river corridor is yet. It's written that it's 50 feet from the top of a bank. Okay, it's very vague, because up where I live, the bank might be 150 feet above water, the top of the bank. So where's the top of the bank? And they can't answer that right now. The difference is if the state were to adopt it, and Charles, I may need your help here, there's a certain percentage of money that we can recoup. That is like 5% more in emergency funds, emergency state aid, 5 or 7% more, which really, we've talked to Brian about it, it really doesn't amount to that much in this town.
Well, it would if we had a FEMA
It
event.
would if we had a major event, correct? It would.
Can I add something?
Yes, you may.
It adds up to 5% of the reimbursement, so FEMA pays 75% and the state pays a portion, and we already qualify for some of that 25%. This would add up to 5, an additional 5, up to, but not necessarily.
Right.
They're not obligated to give us another 5%. So we could adopt river corridors, be stuck with the zoning, and not get the money.
Right. So we would go through the whole process of us having public meetings, you guys having public meetings, and adopting another zoning bylaw, which will constitute, Charles and I are in agreement on this, will constitute a public taking of private land rights. Okay, which means basically in that 50-foot, that undefined 50-foot buffer, you as a landowner cannot do anything. And if you do, you're in violation. So to boil it down to soup and nuts, we talked about it for a long time. We cussed it and discussed it and basically decided to table any recommendation to you guys for a year to see if they firm things up on what it is. We are unanimously in support of this project in any areas where it directly affects public safety. So down here, where the Lamoille and the Guyon affect public safety, absolutely, let's go forward, let's keep the public safe. Up in West Settlement, up where I live, up beyond Rocky's place, you know, even if the stream changes a little bit, it's not gonna create any public safety hazard. And so why would we adopt any sort of regulations up there that has to do with another layer of zoning in town? That's kind of our feeling, in a nutshell.
What classifies a river?
I believe any body of water which drains 200 acres or more. And we've been at this for 2 years now, and the map continues to extend further and further up the mountains as they add more designations. Right now, and only because I live there, so I paid attention to it, the Foot Brook River corridor would go from the union of the Lamoille River down here all the way up past Doug's place to where it splits into Three Fingers. So the state would just take a paintbrush and take control of that river the whole way.
Well, in terminology, they'd be calling the brooks rivers. You know?
Right,
Right.
correct.
And I would assume that the three branches all drain more than 200
Oh,
acres.
absolutely they do. These, and Charles will back me up on this, I'm sure, is the changes in the maps. If we look at the maps, they keep creeping further and further and further up the mountain as people, you know, study the topography better and the area photography better.
If you look on the maps and you check up near your back lot, now which I now own,
Right.
they show drainage there
Right.
for that, you know. So that's
But
at
interestingly
2,000
enough,
feet.
that one that goes right behind my house and goes up to the back lot, they say doesn't drain 200 acres, and I'm like,
They gotta be kidding.
okay, so, and Phil, we're talking about the river corridors right now. So, the commission in general was not comfortable making a recommendation to the select board, because if we did, we would basically say no. So we opted to table it for a year to give them a chance to settle out and see where this comes out.
So we don't even do anything on the places you think might be, or ask you what you consider where public safety is in that?
You can, as the select board can adopt, this is where Phil's gotta step in, because he knows it better than I do. The select board can adopt a portion of river corridors. So you can say the major Guyon and Lamoille River channels, we would like to adopt those. But doing a portion may not grant you any benefits.
Well, yeah, because if you adopt all the corridors, as proposed by the state, we would get 5% of the ERAF funds. Partial
Right.
adoption would get us a portion of those funds, so.
They sent me, LCPC sent me some maps that said, now you can have some, you can have some input into this designation.
LCPC is trying really, really hard to, I'm not gonna say to end run the towns, but to go out with public information to landowners about river corridors. It's too little too late. The brook that runs past your place is already under state control for Act 248 and Act 250. They signed that legislature,
So the
what,
back.
6
the
years
back-
ago?
The back brook?
Yeah, so, I mean, for anything that's under the state's purview, permitting wise, it seems like they're already taking jurisdiction over corridors. The question is whether the town would like to also.
So what the difference is, so you know what the difference is, if, pick a landowner against a river here, it's almost any landowner. If any landowner wants to do some sort of a development, let's say, high-density housing development, even for fixed income, near a brook, okay? Today, you've got to file for an Act 250 permit for that. Any stream that is designated in a river corridor project is under the control of the state, and they will adjust what you do based on the river corridor statute. If you, as a select board, were to adopt river corridors, you then have jurisdiction over a private person like Doug building a gazebo down by the brook so he can enjoy lunch. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I sent, when this legislation came into effect, I sent it to the title council for First American and said, this is gonna be a nightmare. You know?
I agree.
And no one from the attorneys, I've seen nothing back, people saying, you know, oh my God, you know, we are going to have to title search, this is going to be a restriction, you know?
It is, and if zoning is adopted, if the river corridor zoning is adopted by the town, it becomes an even tighter private matter as to what goes on. Doug, these guys don't know what it is, but the Taj Mahal would be illegal,
Yep, yep,
because it's within that corridor.
even if it's on the ground now.
That's right, even if it's on the ground now. It's a deer stand that he built about 30 years ago.
You explained that you went over the difference between river corridors and NFIP, right? Or do you guys know?
Go ahead.
So the national flood insurance restrictions that we currently have, you know, building in the floodplain, those are FEMA maps that are designed to represent inundation flooding. So river comes up, goes in your basement, ruins your furnace, you know, whatever. River corridors represent channel migration. So it's a corridor where the state expects that the channel of the stream may migrate someday. So, you know, in a big storm event, the channel could correct itself, you know, 20, 30 feet. You may not be in the floodplain, but your house might be in the river, you know, because your house has been undercut.
The extreme fear of river corridors is what happened down in Jeff behind the tennis courts, where those houses up on that clay bank were suddenly unexpectedly vulnerable.
Probably not in the floodplain, right?
Right. So
So that's the difference.
I don't see, personally, I don't see 90% of what they've got mapped as river corridors. I don't see as ever being an issue in this town. The banks are just too steep, the mountain is just too high. There's no way those streams are gonna ever move their channel. They're just not. If they do, it's not gonna come anywhere near any people. It's just not. Down here along the Lamoille River, along the Kion, where we have those problems, we have slower moving water, we have major amounts of water, yes.
So how about if we kept this discussion until we were planning on meeting at some point with you guys? And that would probably be a better time for us to be able to really jump into it.
Be happy to. Well, the commission voted to table any recommendation to you guys for a year.
Okay.
We did not vote to table discussion. So we can have a discussion anytime we want.
Anything else?
That's it for tonight.
Were we gonna arrange a meeting with them?
Well, that's something I wanted to bring up to the board. We have not had the luxury of the board meeting first. Do we want to take that opportunity? We were tentatively scheduling a meeting for next Monday night, the 25th. Whether it's jointly with the planning commission or a standalone with the board, to maybe discuss what we want to provide for a direction for the planning commission before we meet with them. We haven't had that opportunity yet.
I think we should do it with them as a brainstorming thing.
Well, we could do that. The other thing that we have scheduled for the 25th is the legislators are coming in, which I anticipate that would be an hour-long meeting probably. They talk about the health clinic in the town. But I guess I'm looking for board feedback on, do we want to try to set something up for the planning commission for next Monday as well? Or have us have an opportunity first to talk about what we think maybe a priorities should be?
I'm with Doug.
Okay.
Together.
Doug?
I think the planning commission and you guys are both aware of the issue that LCPC is interested in getting some feedback on the town, from the town zone with regard to regionally significant ridge lines, and whether or not you want to designate anything. As I understand, LCPC isn't specifically going to designate anything. but they're going to potentially change the criteria that they would use to evaluate what constitutes a significant regional vision. So I don't know if you want to add that into the mix or not, or whether the planning commission wants to discuss that any further in terms of whether they want to designate or make local designated
The town plan.
In our energy plan, we did designate some ridgelines we wanted to protect, but this is something new, and I know LCPC wanted to come to, I think, our last meeting, right? They didn't make it to talk about this. I think it was going to be a brief discussion.
So,
And we may want to expand out for those very reasons, inviting our rep from the LCPC to be in
Sure.
that
I
discussion.
mean, that's up to you guys. If you're,
and the Conservation
hosting it.
Commission too.
I was thinking about that.
one of the issues of ridgelines we ran into back when when we combined the village and the town plan is, when you actually look at it, there's not a lot of ridgelines that this town owns. There's a lot of ridgeline that we see that is owned by a different town.
Yeah, you can see a lot, like Sterling Ridge is, you know.
Well, even up above, a lot of that is actually Eden, not Johnson,
Right.
or Waterville.
So would you poll your members and see if
I
they-
can send an email out, I can try and send an email out tomorrow morning, you remind me,
You can.
and we can announce it, whether people show up or not.
Probably put it for 8 o'clock.
Push for 8 o'clock.
We'll spend an hour, 7 o'clock with the legislators.
Okay. Are you looking for a quorum from the planning commission?
Preferably.
Good luck.
Those are different questions.
I can promise you 3 people, how's that?
And copy Duncan, and Howard's not our rep, is he? He's a one at
He's a
large.
county director.
Yeah.
He's-
Okay, but I guess Duncan, include him on your email too.
Conservation Commission or?
We should at least ask for a rep. There's gonna, if we're talking about the ridge lines, there is gonna be a role for the Conservation
Yeah.
Commission to play.
Well, Lois.
Phil, if you want to message me tomorrow, we can make up a list for,
Yeah, I'll be.
Who do we need to talk to?
I can give you a call in the morning.
Other than that, we opted, because our regular meeting date next month would be town meeting day, we opted just to cancel that. So,
Well, in the next, we have to reschedule the following month too, because it's on the agenda.
so. But if we could, certainly, we can call a regular meeting if we've got something to work on.
Okay. Anything else for Dave?
What's
And
your
we will
regular
have- we will have some informational stuff. He and Kim are gonna organize some informational stuff for town meeting.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I do have
Yeah.
like a plotted map of the recorders, which we were gonna put up,
Yeah, nice.
Cool.
so we can at least talk to people about that.
Thank you.
So your regular meeting is the first Tuesday of every month?
Correct. Seems to be a moving target, but we've settled back to the first Tuesday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Until Tuesday Night Live starts.
Right.
Then somebody likes his pie.
Somebody likes
Okay.
their pot?
Pine.
Hi.
Pie.
Thank you for coming in. And if there's no further comments,
I didn't put my hearing aids in tonight, I
So
forgot.
we're meeting next Monday?
Good move.
Yes.
The planning commission is invited to meet with the select board next Monday night at 8 o'clock, correct?
Duncan, I know yours is fairly short, so I'll give you first opportunity, and then we'll go into the Eldridge.
Sure, excuse me, the Historical Society discussed at their last board meeting the possibilities of hiring a facilitator to assist us with the process of developing a strategic plan for the Historical Society. There was general support amongst that notion from the board. They asked me to report back to them at the next board meeting with a list of potential facilitators, potential costs, et cetera. And then Lois, like the day after we had the meeting, emailed me a memo from a grant page through the Vermont Community Foundation, which would potentially grant up to $2,500 to hire a professional facilitator for that purpose. So we would like, it's a rolling basis. The applications are on a rolling basis, but they're also on a first come, first serve basis, the pot of money. So we kind of like to get an application in, and we would ask whether the select board would officially authorize the Historical Society to submit a grant application to hire a facilitator to assist us with strategic plan.
What's the board's pleasure? We would need to so move, authorize them.
Well, we always ask local share questions.
If there is a local share, and the local share would be picked up by the Historical Society. So essentially, we would, if we were successful in getting a grant, it would cut our costs in half.
What's the board's pleasure?
As long as there's no cost to the town.
You're so moving?
As long as it has no cost to the town, I'm all for it.
Is that a motion or?
Yeah, we'll make it a motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, second. Any more discussion?
Could that motion sometimes the grants require this, could that motion possibly include having me be the authorized agent to make the application to the Vermont Community Foundation?
Okay. Is that a friendly amendment?
Yeah,
Friendly
Yep.
amendment?
again, as long as it doesn't cost the
Yes,
town.
there would be no direct cost to the town.
Any other discussion?
I think the idea of having a survival plan for the Historical Society is a good idea. You know,
Oh, same here.
So going forward to see that it's likely to continue beyond its, people my age.
Yeah, we think that's really important too, Doug, and we've had a couple of meetings to do strategic planning. And what ends up happening is nobody really is in charge of, taking a comprehensive set of notes or coming up with, everybody comes up with a series of great ideas, but at the end of the day, we have a bunch of people that came up with a bunch of great ideas and no path forward with it. So we think this would focus the role.
Yeah. Great.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Great.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Just also wanted to say that this grant, I don't have any idea what this means, but there is a statement under what we fund, and it says enabling organizations to consider a possible merger through facilitated conversations. In that context, I have no idea what an organization is, but I figured I would at least mention that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Okay,
Thanks, Evan.
Eldridge, you got the floor. Is everyone basically familiar with what we got going on here? The Armstrong property out on River Road, west or east. Okay, I think everybody's familiar with the property, where you guys are, so
Yeah.
go from there.
So we've got a number of years of just documented complaints and concerns to the town. Really nothing's been done. The town of Johnson has a solid waste ordinance. In that ordinance, it lists all the things that they're trying to.
Could I ask you to speak up?
Sure.
Yeah.
In the town ordinance, the solid waste ordinance, it lists off all the things that they don't want on people's property. All those things are on his property. So I'm asking the town of Johnson what they want to do to enforce that ordinance.
I know what you guys are dealing with. The town's been dealing with it for probably well over a decade. We write tickets. They don't comply. We order them to comply. They don't comply. We write tickets. It goes to court. Court orders them. They don't comply. We asked the state to get involved a few years ago because they were burying garbage right there near the little stream that goes through the property. I think probably the state did the same thing. They ordered them to clean up or comply, probably didn't do anything, and they backed away from it, ignored it. I'm not sure exactly what happened with the state. I think what they found the same thing that we did is you can order him to do something and there's nothing you can get from him to enforce it. We could put a lien on the property, but he's not gonna sell it, so we would never be able to force it through a sale. We could spend legal dollars having our attorney, which I believe we did years ago, go that route, forcing him into court. I wish I knew what the answer was. I'm just telling you what we've done through these years, and I'm at wit's end. I'm not sure.
The latest thing with his mobile home that burned down this summer, what became of that with the state?
I don't know if the state knew about that. They were there when it was the garbage, the dump that he was burying in the ground.
Yeah. Well, no, just recently, I spoke with Mike Dunham. You went over and looked at it?
No, I told you that we were getting them our health officer to look into it. That's what I told you.
And what did she find?
Do you want to go through what we've done so far?
He's got the whole
Yeah.
business.
We have had.
I got right on it though after we
Oh,
talked.
yeah.
We've had the state out again, and we've had our health officers out again. They weren't able to observe him burying anything. They didn't see evidence that they could use for disposal of anything that's toxic.
How could they say that when there's fresh excavator tracks and piles of earth with not grass on it? It's been disturbed. The area's been dug up.
It has been, and he offers explanations as to why that's the case and why it's not a more severe case than that would bring in another level of enforcement. We have issued tickets for what we can observe. And I'm hoping that the state will be a little bit more active on something like the mobile home, something like that, where there's a greater degree of contamination than just routine garbage.
Brian, when you say the state, which agency are you talking about?
It is DEC, the Department of Environmental Control, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Is there information that there's a abandoned mobile home buried on the site?
We don't have anything to confirm that that happened or not. We believe that it did, but we haven't been able to confirm it. We don't. He wouldn't have filed anything with us if he had disposed of it properly, but based on what his neighbors have observed, we think there's a pretty good chance he didn't dispose of it properly and that he did bury it on his property.
Is there information available about that?
Just what I've observed. Like I said in emails, I saw an excavator there for 4, 5, 6 days, and no roll-off dumpsters. Normally a mess like that would require at least a couple. There wasn't enough area in the dooryard to park a dumpster, number one.
Who was the excavator operator?
They rented it from Farm and Garden.
And,
They rented it.
okay. Do we know who operated it?
They
He did.
He did.
Have we asked them if they buried it?
I wasn't present when the investigator from the state went down, but to the best of my knowledge, they said that they
part
did
of the
not.
investigation.
They said they have explanation as to why the things on their property are not garbage and are,
Yeah. Trash and treasure.
yeah.
You say trash and treasure?
Yes.
So what has the state said about it? You filed something, have we heard anything back from them? What's going on with the state?
I've followed up a couple times with the state. At this time, it doesn't look like they're taking any enforcement action. They're going to try and get him in touch with some support services for people who have a hoarding problem, but at this time, there's no enforcement action scheduled.
So have we written any tickets to this?
We have,
We have, and they've gone and paid, obviously.
so far. Our health officers were out there this Saturday, pretty recently, related to this and related to a dog bite incident I informed the board about a couple days ago. That we originally didn't have a lot of information about, but it resolved to, excuse me.
That's what happens when you don't pay the electric bill.
You know, the deal is, Eric, we ought to have a larger fine for this kind of thing, and we ought to lien property, because you said earlier that you didn't think they would ever sell it. People change their mind from time to time, and it's not cast in stone. And so, you know, good grief, what is it, $500,000 fine for throwing trash outside the road? I mean, we ought to have at least equal to or more of a fine than the state has for littering. When people bury trash.
And because I have a checkbook, if you find garbage on my property, I gotta pay a fine.
Yeah.
You're letting this guy go.
You got resources we can go after. This guy,
Well, it doesn't mean he doesn't have resources we can't go after eventually.
Yeah, so when I first got on the board, we had an issue like this, a neighbor complaining about a similar situation on a neighboring property in another part of town. And we pressed the property owner on it, we took them to court, and the judge knocked down their fines considerably, considerably. So we can fine them $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, but when it gets in front of the judge, what happened in that case was they knocked it down to a few $100s, and it still went uncollected as far as I know. So we just don't have enforcement authority. I do agree with Mike that if we have the ability to put a lien on a property, we should.
What would our blighted, if we ever have a blighted building ordinance, is there any?
Or ordinances.
I know we have, it seems to me that this is just slipping aside because it's uncollectible, and so if you don't have the resources, we're not gonna drill down, we're not gonna get an injunction, we're not gonna go look for that, we're not gonna do anything. I think we need to do something.
We would likely run into a very similar situation with any kind of blighted building ordinance, in that if somebody's really determined not to cooperate, it becomes very difficult for us to do anything. You know, if they don't have resources, if they don't have the money, they're not selling the property, they're just gonna let it go. It's very difficult for us to get a handle on that and work with them somehow.
People have money for what they want to have money for. You know, and, we hear this all the time, that people don't have money. That's not necessarily the whole truth. You know, it's...
I agree, but again, you gotta present that case to a judge.
I know, and the point is that I think it's awful that you could, let's say, I think it's $500 officially to the state of Vermont for littering. And I don't think a judge should have the ability to reduce that fine at all, because that is set in stone. You know, and if we do it, if our board does it, I think it should be set in stone, a $500 fine.
I'm not thinking about fines, I'm thinking about injunction. You bury a mobile home, which we don't know is the case, but if that's the case, I think that the excavator should be hired again and dug up, or we do it, you know? I think
Then we have to have a search warrant, don't we?
I don't know what we need, but I just think that we need to go further than what we've done of asking the state. It seems to me that we ought to drill down like there's a missing body there. They may or may not be, but I think we need to drill down and see if we can.
Certainly
So-
some kind of soil sample is gonna turn up something.
Is there nothing that that the sheriff's department can do to get involved? Do we have to go from us to the state? Can there be any?
The sheriff's department has relatively limited authority on this. For most of this, the ordinances that would be in effect would be our local solid waste ordinance. So we're working on that one with our health officers and our constables. Then the applicable state laws usually require more investigation and specialization than what the sheriff's department really has. The sheriff's department can be very helpful. I know you called the sheriff's department, he was helpful when there was a physical obstruction in your driveway.
Right.
You know, the sheriff's department is the perfect resource for something like that. But for investigating whether there's, is this a contaminated source? Is he burying things that he shouldn't be?
Aren't there environmental enforcement officers, or have they already been involved?
They have.
Okay.
When we're talking about the state, we're really talking about the environmental enforcement officers.
And they just stopped answering your phone call, or where?
I'll give them a call again. They were the ones that are going to be their primary recourse on this. They've suggested is going to be getting in touch with some support services for hoarding to try and help him with cleaning up his property.
How does it get determined that he's a hoarder?
Mostly because he has a lot of stuff on his property that he claims has value. And their determination is that, they can't easily say whether it does or doesn't, but that's his explanation as to why there's so much stuff on his property. And that's a hallmark sign for somebody who is a hoarder, is that they're retaining a lot of things that they think have value.
When you issue him the tickets, he should be able to sell that stuff and pay it then.
Yes. Yeah, we would really like it if he did that.
I don't know about the stuff that you see on the property, but I would focus on the mobile home. Is it there? Where did it go?
We think the state would be focused on that, because that's a hazardous material that's in the ground.
And like you said, the brook is right back of it.
Yeah.
And you can see the river from
From
Stanley
the-
Boyer, so.
I don't know whether it's there or not there, but I think that we ought to ask, maybe you beg your representatives to ask EOC. I know Dan personally knows environmental investigators in other areas of the state. He's familiar with this process.
Dan could be a really good resource to loop in on this, and I have not worked with Dan or the other representatives yet. They've been very helpful with us in other matters when it came to kind of getting things raised to the next level.
What are next steps?
I think that we can look at, Doug was talking about injunctions, find out a little bit more about what would it take for us to do our own investigation. And we can work with our representatives about speeding up or progressing the state's investigation. And kind of following through with them about what are they doing?
Actually using Dan to turn the heat up on them too.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, I think that might make the difference.
'Cause I don't see value in us getting our attorneys involved, spinning our wheels, go to court. They take all of our fines and slash them to nothing. And then we're lucky if we even get that money back. We'll
Our
spend a
new attorney
fortune.
isn't cheap either.
So what were the findings of the health officer when you said she went over there on Saturday?
I haven't received a written report from her yet, but it was, that he is has garbage on his property, that he is improperly disposing of solid waste. That it was the solid waste ordinance was what he received a fine for.
So how many fines has he received for the solid waste ordinance?
Um, He has, this is his first recent one, and I don't have a complete history. I know that he has received a number of them in the past.
So
But
he
this
did
is,
get one on Saturday?
he did.
So is that gonna be recorded anywhere? I mean, is that gonna be in your minutes that you have after this meeting?
It will now show up in our minutes after this meeting. And it's kind of the actions of our enforcement officers are part of our office records.
The ticket gets turned into municipal court?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So, I mean, the tickets are in the court system now, but it's just collecting them.
Well, it's nice to hear that something has been done recently, you know, instead of just everything is set on the back burner because he's such a difficult person, or that he's poor, or whatever. You know what I mean?
I'm very sympathetic to your frustration of how patient you've been and everything you've waited on for this to move ahead very slowly.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the place isn't safe, you know, it's not healthy, it's not safe, and you can see it from Route 15.
They're really telling it'll be after snow melts, because it's probably covering a lot of sins right now.
Yeah.
If Dan can put some pressure on the state.
Yeah. I think that might really make a difference in a way that we,
I mean, I think they're gonna run in the same roadblocks we have, but I don't know.
So can we look at overdue tickets and potentially put a lien on the property?
I'll find out more about putting a lien on the property.
Well, the ticket is just, you know, you gotta go to court, you gotta have a judgment, and then you gotta go from there.
Yeah, we'd have to receive a
Process
judgment
first.
before we could.
We have to receive a judgment. Well, but that would be relatively inexpensive. Okay.
There's no magic pill.
No.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
we-
sorry.
Well, thank you guys.
We are sympathetic with what you guys are dealing with.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
If I find another wheel cover, I'll get it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You ready to go into your report?
Yes.
Broadband search?
So we have interest from a number of people, same people we had last month. So that brings us to, we had set the board, the committee at 5 members. We've got 6 people interested. We can kind of have a choice about, do we set it at, do we appoint all 4 additional people, so it's 6 members, raise the total limit to 7, look for a 7th member, which we didn't find anybody, or 5 members and appoint the kind of 5 members that have expressed the most interest. Charles and Rob have met with a couple of the members that they feel pretty strongly about working with.
Your wife was, Robin was,
A little on the fence. I mean, she would be interested, but if there's other people who are going to do it, then
So who's on the slate then?
besides Rob and Charles, we've got Una Lee, Charlotte Reber, and Barry Cohen,
And Robin Story.
and Robin Story.
so what's the board's pleasure? You want to appoint the three of the 4? Put us up to 5, or increase the total to 7 and appoint all 4. And then we'll have to look for one more.
When I was looking at the minutes, Mr. Gallagher indicated he thought there'd be no problem staffing a 7-person. Do you have suspects?
Well, is it my turn to talk? Rob and I would definitely like to get Una or Una? Anyway, Ms. Lee
Yes.
and Barry Cohen. But we also want some other representation. Our biggest problem is going to be marketing. All the people that are of the 4, they're all IT people. And we got plenty of IT people, and that's the easy part, frankly. The hard part is marketing and finance. And we'd like to get people with some marketing and finance experience. Assuming you accept our recommendation to add Uma and Barry, it leaves 1 slot, or 3 slots, depending if you go to 7. But we need, before you move forward, I would like to find people with marketing and/or finance experience, as opposed to more IT people.
And do you have any
No,
people? No.
not yet. But we didn't advertise for that. We just said that a broadband committee was forming, end of sentence. And I think if we put out another solicitation. Will Angler did apply, and he subsequently withdrew, but he said he knew some people that were interested. So I should touch base with him to see if he's got people that, with those skill sets.
As difficult as it is to find people to serve on any kind of a committee and anything, when we have more, I hate to turn anybody away. I'd much rather have 7 and keep the 4 that express interest and find one more.
Good reasoning behind that. What's the board's pleasure?
I think Charlotte Reber would bring a good balance to the board. Her father served on the school board for many years, and I think she'd be good on there.
Well, this project's, she works at the studio center, and this project's important to that organization as well. so I agree.
Uma Lee's husband works for the studio center also.
Yes, he does, yeah. But not in IT capacity as
No.
Sean does.
Who's her husband?
I don't know.
Harlan Mack.
Harlan
Oh,
Mack
that's Harlan, okay.
bought May Bottomley's
Yep,
house
yep,
recently.
If you're looking for a motion, Mr. Chairman, I'll give you a motion that we take the 4 that have expressed interest and go out to find another one.
And increase the committee size?
7.
7, okay. Do we
You
have a
were
second?
opposed to that.
I thought you were opposed to that.
No, that was my suggestion. I thought you were opposed to 7.
I thought you were saying that we should wait until you're going to solicit more people and then come back and,
Yeah, so I would be opposed to his motion.
you would be opposed?
I would be opposed to Mike's motion to add all,
That's what I thought, okay.
yeah.
You'd be opposed to 7 members.
I would be opposed to making it 6 now and looking for a 7th.
Right. But as I said, I hate to turn anybody away.
I heard you.
And
And that's your decision, not mine.
So we got the motion on the floor, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, now we do have a second.
I understand that we would have 7-member board, and we would have appointed 6, and we have a space left.
That's what I understand the motion to be.
right, we find the extra one. We go out to.
You can still operate with 6. You
Sure.
might have a split vote, but.
We can operate with 2.
That's good.
Well,
I
that's what
wonder
we're
if we
afraid
should
of.
reach out to the college about a marketing person
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
and get them to have some skin in the
What'd you
game,
say?
too. The college, the university.
Any other discussion?
So you're not against a 7-member board, you just wanted to wait until you advertise again to see if you
Yeah,
get
3.
another name.
The other 3.
Another 3.
To
He wanted the 2 that he mentioned.
Yeah, I want 2 of the 4
Gary
vacancies.
and Una.
Barry and Uma, and that would leave 3 seats available. But that's your decision, not mine.
I understand.
Any other discussion? Seeing None. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Congratulations, you got a 6-member board with a 7th on the way.
Which means that,
Shake the
can we make
tree.
it retroactive so that the meeting Rob and I had today wasn't illegal?
Too late here.
Too late.
You're in chains, buddy.
Conflict of interest.
Yes.
Thanks,
Board
Charlie.
You're welcome.
approved the conflict of interest statement at their last meeting,
And we didn't
and
sign
no
it.
one signed it.
So did we really agree with it?
I'll call you about the testimony and stuff.
Okay, please do.
So,
We agreed to it, we just didn't have it to sign, right?
oh, we had it to sign.
Why didn't we sign it?
Forgot to.
Keystone Cops.
Yeah, we just moved on to the next item.
Okay.
So no changes are made, just,
Review for preparation for town meeting.
so, kind of discussing anything, any issues that anybody knows about ahead of town meeting. I know one issue that we're gonna be working on is laying hands on some additional microphones. We are actually in very short supply right now. The elementary school only has one microphone for us. So it would go on the podium, and that would be it. So I'm gonna try and get a hold of the tech center. I'm gonna talk to, thank you. If the tech center can't help, I'm gonna try reaching out to Bill Ascom with Tuesday Night Live, see what I can do about raising some sound equipment. The other discussion item we had was the, let's see, we talked a little bit about getting signaling devices or making it easier to tell who's participating and who's observing. I spoke to Dave Williams about that a little bit. What we kind of came up with that we kind of like is making it a little bit more clear that the seating up front is where people are recognized. And that in the back of the room,
To be
folks don't.
spectators.
Yeah,
And Dave was okay with that?
yes.
Okay, good. I think that's a good idea.
In past, the last at least 1, maybe 2 years, we haven't set up seating in the back.
Yes.
Because we're encouraging people to come forward and not just hang out in the back like they had been.
I think we
But I think we
would,
had side, like bleacher.
there was some
seating.
space on the bleachers last year, and there was a lot of folks just standing.
Yeah.
I think that I don't think we need to change a lot of the layout from last year, other than, we might use I don't know, what do you call them, the poles that pull the fabric ribbon between them.
Oh, yeah.
We might use a couple of those to help designate that this is where the line is, so that it becomes very obvious if you're we're not gonna be checking people's ID. It's, we're operating on the assumption that if somebody comes forward that isn't a voter, enough people will recognize that they're not a Johnson resident, and
Well, people are checked in when they come into the room to vote.
they are, but other
Other people come in.
people come in, and we're not gonna get into putting people checking IDs when folks come forward. We're just gonna kind of rely on the honor system of, we didn't really I don't think we have a problem with people,
Can't check IDs anyway.
I don't think we have a problem with people voting who aren't members. I think we have more of a problem with it just being a little bit chaotic and shouty, like a lot of yelling back and forth.
That's not
Well-
my sense at all of this thing. My sense was that that you sent people over to the bleachers and voters ended up in the bleachers mixed with other people, and it was very hard to differentiate.
The
I think if
non-voters
you
should
put
sit in the bleachers.
I think if you put front and back, you won't be able to differentiate between who's voting and who's not voting as well as, it's a Dave's call, of course, on that. And, you know, I think the problem was the voters mixing in with the non-voters.
Well, and that's kind of what we'd establish here, is that if you're on the outside of that front space, you're not voting. Whether you are
A voter or not.
sitting
Dave-
out the vote,
Dave would
or,
not recognize you. If he
Yeah.
made that clear at the beginning of the meeting, that you gotta be within the ribbon or whatever it is, and in one of the seats, then he will recognize you and you can address the body, you can vote. But if you're beyond the seating,
Last year at village meeting, you remember, everybody in the village sat in the chairs. And there was a number of people who were not in the village, in the townspeople, and we sat on the bleachers. And there was no problem at all.
Yeah.
And you remember, we asked to be recognized if we wanted to speak. And I didn't see any problem at all with that. I thought it went really well.
that's pretty much what we're doing, we're
Right,
just
it's just
making
saying
it a
it out
little more clear.
Right.
But I'm confused by front. It seems to me that if you have front and then you've got a line and you got people behind, it will be harder to differentiate between people voting. You can differentiate between, raise your hand and you can't speak, because you're not in the voters. But if you're on a vote, when you're 2 feet behind, how in the world, and you're just judging volume, how are you going to do it? I can understand when they can't put their hand up, but I don't know if they can differentiate.
You're saying you want a division and have the people that want to speak sit to the front of the building, of the front of the group? Like if they wanted to speak, take the first 2 rows or something?
Not necessarily,
No.
I think it's,
any of those chairs, if you were in that, we only fill up half the gym with chairs.
Right.
If you're in the chair section, you're a voter. If you're beyond the chairs, way on the back wall back there, then you're not gonna be a voter and you're not gonna be recognized. Or you could be a voter, but you're not gonna be recognized.
That's Kyle's territory.
Well, good grief. There were lots
Well,
of
it's a
people that were
little-
standing last year.
But they
that were
stand way
voters.
back there and then they yell their questions up to the front, and some of the people in the chairs have difficulty hearing.
Man alive, I'm hard of hearing, and I didn't have any problem last year.
Well, you can,
Well, there's a variety of reasons why people are in the back. There's people that just can't stand, they're shifty. They can't sit in the front with a group. I mean, I've observed this for the last several town meetings. There's just those that just have to need to be in the back. Then we've got the volunteer boards that are set up. We have the Historical Society selling the pies and Suzanne Dodge with the coffee. So there's always, and kids with parents trying to keep.
People with kids really want to be back there.
yeah.
So there's gonna always be people back there that I think
I think we
deserve to be heard, but we
put
need.
something up where you can come and go, where we're not really restricting people to choose one area or the other.
I think you're making a big issue out of nothing. Really, I don't see anything, I don't see what the problem is.
You couldn't tell last year, some people were voters, or there were non-voters and voters in the same area.
Well, you think there was some cheating going on?
No, I don't think there was cheating going on, but I think that you didn't know who was. And all I'm saying is, I'd rather see them on the side than just for.
Well, me too. I mean, if you're a non-voter, you're a spectator, and you should sit in the bleachers. But as far as people standing around in the back, it's their business if they want to stand up. It doesn't mean that they're any lesser of a townsperson than somebody who sits. They just want to stand.
But when the pollers have to count the votes, and it's by standing, how do you know if somebody who's standing in the back is standing because they're voting or standing because they're not sitting?
That's true, but some of the people that weren't counted moved way into the back last year. Did you see that? That they got out of the way, that they didn't want to be counted.
And That's kind of what we're just trying to codify, is that there's some space that if you go farther back than this, then you're not voting. Whether it's you're ineligible to vote or you're just choosing not to vote. If you're outside that area, you're communicating that I'm not voting.
Right. Well, maybe there should be more chairs up.
Well, there's always empty chairs. That, we've never had a problem with the chairs being,
Well, it's like Kyle said, some people don't want to sit down.
I mean, we could put one or two of the lunch tables out. I'd hate to see the whole back filled with them, just because then it feels like the audience gets further and further away, the more seating that's back there. So we could put one or two, but
I thought the bleachers and everything in the back were fine for people, but
okay.
it's really just, I'd like to make it very clear that when you're talking or voting, come forward.
If you're behind the half-court line,
Then you're not gonna be counted.
you're not gonna be recognized, yeah.
I think my biggest problem with it was shouting, was that I think that sometimes when people are shouting, it makes it a little bit easier for things to become a little more heated.
Yeah.
Even if they don't necessarily mean it to be, but if they're shouting across the gym,
Well,
it makes it a little bit easier to
So-
interpret or to feel that way.
some people don't like microphones. Some people just don't want to come to a microphone.
Yep,
Even if you hand them a microphone, they won't speak into a microphone. And if they do, they hold it down. Some people just don't want to do it. They just want to have their natural voice.
A lot of people are unfamiliar with them.
Right.
but when the people do that, there's other folks in the audience who then can't hear what they're saying.
Right, but if you're going to speak, you should speak into a microphone.
Right.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think part of it is Dave just putting down the law. Like, if you're gonna speak, you have to come in front of the microphone. If you're gonna vote, you've gotta come forward. I mean, right?
He can do that, he can make
I think that's his
at the
role.
very
That's-
beginning of a meeting.
Yeah, he'll make
you
it clear and,
And you can have like a demarcation line that if it's a stand-up vote, those who are in the back can cross that line
That's right.
and get into that area
Yeah.
to
You
be
can put
counted.
signs by the
And then when they
bleachers.
don't want to be counted, they just walk to the other side of it.
I
think
think
that's-
that's all we can do.
Yeah, and Dave said having something like that there would make it easier for him to be very clear to people, you know,
Yeah.
Talking about this,
just some kind of ribbon or something that's easy for people to cross back and forth, but something that makes it clear to all observers, you know, so there's nobody who says, I thought I was far enough forward and I thought I'd be counted.
gotta be in front of this, we have an elastic line or whatever they
Yeah.
are?
We've got the,
Oh, yeah.
Good.
so if you're on this side of them, you're counted. If you're on the other side, you're not.
Velvet rope.
Enough said about that.
Yeah, for voice votes,
I don't think so, let's keep going.
it'll be fine. Yeah, we don't think there's any widespread fraud or anything. It's just, we're trying to,
This is a national
Yeah.
election. Bernie got cheated out of his nomination.
yeah, and I mentioned the microphones, trying to lay hands on, it would be great if we could get a couple cordless microphones that we can kind of circulate for people to use, so they don't have to get up and come to the central microphone. If we can send microphones to them, that way Dave can also, if we have two microphones, the idea would be that one person would, while they're talking, he can kind of point out who the next person's gonna be. It might keep the
How much
flow going
would,
pretty well.
I mean, there might be value in the town and maybe the village going in on some kind of a sound system if the school's not gonna have one anymore.
Would the village use it?
Well, they're gonna meet over there this year,
Oh, yeah.
because,
You can't get the village to pay for it, they'd be paying for it twice.
Well, if they merged, then they wouldn't.
I mean, if the school's always provided it, it's strange that they would.
It's just, their equipment is currently down. It's not that they're unwilling to, it's just
Okay, well, there we
a
go.
technical problem that they're experiencing right now that
Okay.
Well-
unfortunately lines up with town meeting.
Is the equipment that Bill uses, is that something that we bought as a town?
I don't think so.
It's
I
not?
don't
Okay.
believe so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that they bought that with funds that they raised rather than funds that were provided by the town.
But those funds would have come through the town, probably. I believe there's some sound equipment that Concept 2 gave to the town to buy for Tuesday Night Live, so
Oh, maybe there is
I
something.
believe we'd have to go back in the records to see who actually owns it, but I think technically it might be the town.
But yeah, I'm gonna go to the tech center first, because they would theoretically also be able to supply us with some technical support for it. Failing that, I'm gonna go to,
And they'll be there
Bill.
recording it anyway,
yeah,
so. yeah.
they'll have people on hand,
Yeah.
with obvious audio experience. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a suggestion. Can the school turn off their bells?
That's a good idea.
I will make that request.
That is annoying.
Part of the
Well, it
character of the
interrupts
meeting.
things, you know?
It does.
Now, are we gonna have the legislators, they just gonna show up as usual, or are we gonna have them in a different? try
It's
to-
when they can coordinate it,
Okay.
the three of them.
We're gonna be meeting with them tomorrow, so it's a good
Yeah.
time for us to reiterate to them that, we'd like a better heads up about when they're gonna be here, and we can try and schedule
They,
something
they
with
should
them.
be able to give us a time, because they do
Yeah.
coordinate it between the three of them, so. They probably go Wolcott, Hyde Park, Johnson.
I'm opposed to them just crashing the meeting in the middle of the meeting. I think in the beginning, at lunch, or at the end is better. I really don't like that.
They really spoiled things last year.
I like the idea of lunch.
Yeah. So that's my.
At
2 cents.
lunchtime?
Yeah, I mean, they can get up and give their spiel while we're all eating and then mingle and,
We suggested to them that they try and have a specific time to show up, but yeah, next week when we meet with them is a good opportunity to reiterate that. And lunch is,
Lunch will be, you're gonna have to arrange that to break at lunch because we will not be finished.
yes.
Preparation for town meetings, that general strategizing, can we talk about anything?
If there's something you want to bring up, I think.
The sheriff's budget.
Yeah.
The sheriff's gets a lot of pushback, $550,000 for that. We've seen this state trooper out here from time to time, and so the other day I pulled over and I talked to him. His name is Mark, I can't remember his last name, but he was checking his email, which is, he could pick up some Wi-Fi there. And he was telling me about, I mentioned the sheriff's budget to him, and I mentioned state police coverage and everything. And he was saying that we could get 135 hours per week of state police coverage for Johnson, for the amount of money we're spending. And we wouldn't need to have that much anyway, probably. And also, there's a state trooper that lives right in Johnson. So that way that if we did look as an alternative form of public safety, that there would be an officer that could be close by, that could get called out, okay? So I don't know where we're gonna go with this, but it's getting out of hand, the state police budget. And I'm not maligning Roger or the sheriffs by any shape or form, but we're getting out of hand as far as servicing that budget. And we need to look at alternatives. And perhaps we ought to find out whether Cambridge is happy with their coverage, with their trooper. And they have an outpost in Cambridge, you know, so they're fairly close by. And really, if we look at all of our statistics, the majority of our calls are by the college. A lot of them are by the college. And the amount of pilot, what's that?
Not the majority.
Well, a good share of them, a good percentage of them do come from the college.
Yeah, but
You
not
know,
the
and their pilot money that the college, that we receive from the college, doesn't anywhere near cover our budget for the police. Okay? It helps with that and helps with other things with our pilot program. But the pilot's like 325,000, correct?
Yeah,
Give or
something
take
like
a few
that.
bucks. And that, granted, that goes to other things, but we really need to, and, you know, when we're talking about the business with Cambridge Volt, okay, it's got that carrot in there, the possible saving of 1.8% if you go yes. Well, we heard that before, several years ago when we were forced into going with the state. Now, if you're not gonna be forced now, but if you jump in now, you're gonna save some money. Well, that didn't last very long, okay? And it's not gonna last very long with this current business that's coming up. And I just see too many expenses for all of us to try to maintain. And the cost that we're putting on the townspeople is far outstripping any raise that people get. And it's just eating into more and more of people's incomes and savings to pay their bills.
I mean, that's not going on deaf ears with Roger. He's concerned about it just like we are. He does not know how to control his costs because his big costs are labor, you know, his employees. And I don't know if you want to pipe in on this, Nat, but he is looking for some citizen group help. And the plan is to have a committee with citizens from all three of the serving communities to look at ways that maybe we do policing different.
And you're gonna address that on town meeting day, right? If a bunch of people bring that up, about the committee and all that to try to save money?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think we need to address it at this meeting, actually, what we're going to do with that committee. In terms of, you know, what the state police officer said out in front, that's good information to have. I wouldn't necessarily take it as gospel truth. What a officer on patrol in town doesn't necessarily have the insight that someone might have higher up the chain of command. Recently, there was an article about this. There've been a number of articles about this in the newspaper. I'm trying to find the quote, but the chair of the Senate Operations Committee, which overlooks state police, said that the state police should not be acting as de facto town police. That the state police do provide contract services for some towns, such as Waterbury, it's a certain number of hours. But they can't do that for every town in the state because they just don't have the capacity to they don't even have really the funding or capacity to do what they need to do at this point. The other thing we wouldn't get for those 135 hours is the detective position that we put into place a few years ago that is designated only for our 3 towns. Primarily that person is dealing with sex crimes mostly against kids. So I think we definitely need to look at that question. We need to dig into that further. We need to look at, well, maybe do they go off the road at a certain period of time? We need them on the road between 1 and 6 a.m. We need to look at what all of our options are. And we need to have that committee. But I think we need to support our budget for this year and get the, I think that this is an important thing to pass.
Well, I understand that, and I'm not trying to stick a wrench in the works. I'm just looking down the road here and trying to find a way to answer questions that may
Yes.
come up at town meeting.
Well, I know usually one of the deputies comes, but will maybe Roger plan to be at?
He was
town
gonna
meeting?
send
He usually sends Chris.
Scott, I think, this time.
He's the detective.
Is it Scott's the detective?
I'll ask him what he's gonna send.
Okay. Just wondering if it's someone who can actually answer some of these questions.
Usually they, yeah.
Yeah, you know.
A lot of the times they can't because, you know, they're on the road deputies. They don't know a lot
No,
of
that's what I'm
budgetary.
saying. That's why I was wondering
Well,
if Roger himself could be there.
Chris should be able to,
Chris should be able to.
but I'll ask.
Okay.
I definitely think so. I've got a friend, I work with a guy who's on the Wolcott Selectboard, and I asked him if he'd be interested, if their board would be interested. He seemed to think unofficially that Wolcott would be interested in joining the study committee. Can't imagine we wouldn't be able to get some interest from Hyde Park.
Yes,
because they
I
spend
think
as much
Roger's
as we
been
do.
talking to Susan about it.
So I'm really in favor of getting that committee together sooner than later.
And it's a good talking point for town meeting,
Yeah.
you know, and so it lets everybody know that we're being proactive.
Yeah.
And that we're trying to save the town money. And that we all feel the pain
Definitely.
of this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I wanted to talk about Article 12, the inclusivity statement, just in preparation for that, because that could be, you know, emotionally charged. So I'm hoping that we could really get Dave up to speed on how to, you know, so that he's prepared to handle it. And I'm also concerned about the nature of the article and confusion around people might not know that we already have an inclusivity statement input that we've adopted as a board, and that voting for the one in town meeting, if it's voted in, would replace the one that we adopted. So I'm wondering how the board feels about somehow, whether it's somehow having the statement that is already adopted and in place projected or, yeah, just physically present so
There
that.
should be something to pass out because the voters are gonna wanna see what the differences are.
Exactly, yeah, because
do you
it's a
think
little
that article's
confusing.
ambiguous? Do you think it's ambiguous the way it's written, or?
No, I'm just saying that people probably might not know that there's already one in place, and that
to
voting yes
compare the
for
two.
this
Right.
would
But I
replace
think
the
if
one
they
in
read
place.
the article, they can deduce that, can't they?
No,
You
not
don't
at
think
all.
so?
No, not at all.
I think it mentions that we had adopted one, but it doesn't give a comparison of what we adopted versus what they're proposing.
Okay.
Yeah,
So even if it was just a handout that we could have available for people
Okay.
with what
Mhm.
was adopted,
I see
probably.
your point.
mm-hmm,
I guess we have inside information because we know
Right.
there's already one, and
Yeah.
right.
I mean, there are some people who know that we're, you know, part of the conversation, but the vast majority of the people at town meeting may or may not even know that we adopted one
Right.
until they read the article in the warning.
Right. Okay, so handout, do you think is the best way to do it?
Just type, you know, have it
Yeah,
on a
just,
piece of paper that we can have it somewhere where don't they usually have a handout desk or something?
We usually
check
have a
in.
couple things that we've got. I want to give a little bit of thought about where and how we can do it, because I don't know if we can have I'll figure it out. I'm not sure where we'll put it, but
Okay.
I think we can put it up somewhere and hand it out.
So what would it say? The select board adopted this inclusivity statement on such and such a date. Article such and such states this, has this as a
Well, they'll
statement.
have that one. They'll have the article because that's in the warning.
I think it might be helpful to people, and it would be a more neutral document, which could help us in terms of things we're handing out at town meeting. If we laid out both of them on a single page.
Okay.
You know, make it clear that this is the current language that the board has adopted, and this is the proposed change.
This is the language proposed by article whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
this could actually go quick or it could go slow.
we'll live it.
But as far as Dave, I wouldn't be concerned. He's dealt with many controversial issues and
Yeah, he seems to want some background information. I mean,
Oh, he
he's
does?
gone, you know, he's out of the country, he's,
Yeah.
you know, and I think the more we can, you know, just give him the background history,
okay.
the better prepared he'll be.
I think if it goes right to the article, it's gonna go fairly quick, but if somebody makes a motion that we don't need one at all,
Right.
then that's where the problem's gonna come.
Well, the voters may even amend it. I mean, it could be something that comes out of town meeting that's completely different than either
True.
one of them.
And that would take 4 or 5 hours probably.
It might. It might be
That's
a long
why-
day.
That's one of the reasons why I think we ought to break for lunch at a certain time, wherever we are.
Well, you're right.
Usually when the food's,
Well,
Ready?
yeah, and actually, just logistically, that would be good, because Mark's firing up the oven, and it's gonna supply pizzas for the potluck, which is happening, 6th grade fundraiser potluck. So they'll need to know, you know.
He's gonna make
what's-
about 50 pieces or
Yeah.
something like that.
if we can get through the budget, then, you know, there's a few little articles that Dave always knows how to play it, so we coordinate it with the cooks in the kitchen there.
That is a good point to break for lunch, because if people get hungry, they get ornery sometimes.
It does provide a place for people to slip out, but I think that.
Yeah, sometimes they don't come back, but.
But I think this is so important that most people will come back.
Yeah, well, we'll see,
See.
we'll see.
We
So
don't
the
know that-
social before from 8 to 9,
An hour?
that's what it's
Oh, is that
been.
what it always?
Yeah.
Okay.
What'd you say? What'd you say, Kyle?
Social from 8 to
Like
9.
8 to 9, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be trying to be mostly outside
That's-
this year, shaking hands, so, usually I'm inside running around making sure childcare is in place and pie people are happy and
Yeah.
boards are
Make sure
set
you
up,
shake
but,
the hands and kiss the babies and not the other way around.
yes. So, guys are gonna have to fend for yourselves inside. But, yeah. Mhm.
Anything else on?
You been out knocking on doors?
Calling, yes, yes.
Sorry, I don't mean
Yeah.
to tell you what to do.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm being very proactive.
Anything else on town meeting?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I should mention, so it goes on the record, that we've got another information session about the rec coordinator position coming up a week from Wednesday.
Yes, yes, yes.
Week from Wednesday, yeah, I think I'm
I'm
supposed to be
going
there.
there.
Yep.
I'm going to that one.
The 27th?
Yes,
That's at 6 o'clock?
7 o'clock. We can make it 6 if we'd like.
I don't care.
All right. So I'll plan on 7 like our meetings typically are.
Sounds like it was well attended last week.
It was very productive and well attended last week. We had a lot of good insight about helping provide information and kind of what do people want to see to be better informed about the position.
Okay.
They had a huge turnout last Saturday for the first grade basketball kids with Hyde Park.
Nice.
Oh, that was packed. They had chairs out. I mean, they did a half-court deal, but there were people all the way. Bleachers were full, all kinds of, there were people down below. Gym was full.
Cool.
They have a lot of kids playing first grade basketball. My grandson's one of them.
Cute.
Highway mileage?
Highway mileage certificate. So we have no changes. So this is another signature item.
Too bad we weren't set up for videos, you know that? And have like a video of the wreck with the kids and everything else and show a short video?
Yeah, Johnson Works is, talked about setting up a YouTube channel that has just Johnson video content.
Well, that'd be cool. A lot of people watch YouTube.
Yeah.
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 But it'd be nice if we had a presentation at town meeting.
Like during lunch hour or during the social hour, if there was a video show going on,
Right.
get on that.
I'm real techie.
All right, so I'm gonna pass this down for you to sign down here.
We don't need a
Move
motion
that
to.
or anything?
We already did, didn't we?
No, this is, I suppose we should.
Did we approve
Make a
it?
motion to,
We hadn't approved it yet?
no. we
Yeah,
haven't.
okay, we need to then.
Um,
Is
I'm
there
getting
any,
ahead of myself. There are no changes.
there are no changes from previous? Okay, what's board's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Right in here?
Yep.
It's only 3 lines, but.
Yeah, strictly speaking, they only need a majority of the board.
Well, that's getting circulated. Do you want to start talking about the fire contract?
Yes. So, the fire contract for let's see, you've got the fire contract, that is, there we go. The village has kindly updated a little bit of the language about what constitutes emergency calls and what doesn't. You know, while still being mindful of not wanting to paint either of us into a corner, so the language is not too restrictive, but it should help with future discussions. It shouldn't be quite as vague as it was previously. But in doing a closer review of this, we discovered some issues that we have with the timing of this. Namely, this is a calendar year contract. So we are not budgeting this properly. Thank you. We have been treating it as a financial year contract. So we are not budgeting it properly, which we'll take care of. You know, it's not gonna be an issue for this year, but in the future. It's asked for quarterly payments. We haven't been making quarterly payments, which is why it isn't an issue for us for now. We've been paying it once annually. And
As well as, we haven't been signing it, well, we've had no fire contract coverage since January 1st for the town. Technically.
So yeah, and that our routine has been to sign this in January or February, and yeah, that's after the contract is technically expired.
We are agreeing to, as well as the village, when they sign it as well, agreeing to a contract that neither one of us have the authorization yet from our voters.
Cool.
This has been going on for a long time.
For however long, yeah.
Funny, nobody noticed that before. Or paid any attention.
Never paid attention.
Never an issue.
You know, the only thing we worried about was, what was the contract gonna cost? Once we had that agreement, we just signed the contract. We didn't pay attention to the details.
And whether it's calendar year or financial year, again, we were making a once yearly payment for the whole amount. We were paying it
In November.
in November. So it was within our financial year and their calendar year. So it didn't really make a big difference to either of us at that point. But it's kind of not the correct way to do it. So my recommendation is that that's a fix for next year. That it's a little bit late to really get into that right now.
The trustees were agreeable to it, too.
Yeah, the trustees, I attended their last meeting to explain to them, I know that our board hadn't met with it, but I at least wanted to inform them that we saw an issue with, mainly the calendar year versus financial year, that we need to both regard it in the same way. And if we're signing this before town meeting for the year after town meeting, we should really have a termination clause in here, and so should they, if they're signing this before they have their village meeting.
They came up with a kind of a scenario, if we're not talking out of turn here. It would take like a year and a half contract to bring it up to start it right, and so that's why, like we said, we're gonna give it some time to figure out how we're gonna do it the right way, but.
And that's why we really can't fix it, because we would have to budget that next year to cover a 18-month period.
Yeah. Then once that was beyond, over that hurdle, then it would be the same every year as the 12-month contract.
Yeah.
So.
It would just be one extra 6 months to bring it around to the fiscal year. That was not a formal vote by the village, so they're kind of in the same situation we are, that they generally recognize that there's an issue, but we haven't made any specific, they haven't made any specific suggestions about how they think they should fix it. We haven't made any specific requests or demands. I think that, again, it's a little bit too late to fix this contract. And as long as we get started on the next one well before December 31st, we should have time to fix it before we sign the next one. And we will want to sign the next one before December 31st so that we don't have a period without fire service again.
And of course, going forward, we would still need a budget number in December, January, but we wouldn't sign the contract until June or whenever.
Yeah.
Like we do with the sheriff's department, the NIMS, etc. So, I guess, what's the board's pleasure on signing the contract with the fire department, knowing all these concerns?
Well, we have to sign it this year.
You so moving?
Yes.
And authorizing the chair to sign?
Yes.
Do we have a second? Lacking a second, the motion will fail.
Second.
Okay, we got a second. Any other discussion?
So, we don't have voter approval for it, right? That's a particular problem. So we would usually say something like that, we'll authorize you to sign contingent upon, that it's verified by the voters, but the voters don't approve the contract, it's in our budget, if they say subtract $100,000, you don't get approval on a line-by-line basis, so.
Unless the voters challenge the moderator on that ruling.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna get into that discussion over this.
I can't see this happening because this has been going on for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Or you don't matter which one
No, we don't have a special one for this.
Okay.
I do need 2 witnesses. So on the left-hand side, in the
Yep.
presence of.
In the presence of,
So
down at the bottom.
Yep.
the planning meeting, what we're proposing is next Monday night, we pushed off the legislators, they were gonna come in tonight, or they wanted to, and discuss a health clinic in the town, and maybe the town get more engaged with it. The village has really been driving this, as well as, that would make the timing with the planning commission as well. And I just also wanted to bring up, if we're gonna meet the Wednesday after town meeting for appointments, then we need to warn that at some future time prior to town meeting day. Or if you want to wait until the following Monday, appointments doesn't take long, maybe a half hour, if we wanted to couple it up with something else, some other items. I'm just looking for what the board's pleasure is on, out in the future a little.
I like doing it on that Wednesday, but I don't.
Okay, so we'll just do a quick appointment-only meeting? Is that, okay, so we'll warn that.
So we'll warn that on Wednesday. We had, when we were talking about, we had this discussion, when we talked about starting semi-monthly meetings, so we're gonna meet twice a month, we had talked about starting in March. We can't do the first Monday in March, because it's before town meeting, or we could, but it wouldn't be very useful. So that's, the first Monday's not likely. Do we want to meet that Wednesday and then meet on the regular Monday? Do you want to do just a very short meeting to do appointments on Wednesday? Kind of, how do we want to arrange that with a,
So what you're suggesting is we may want to meet that second Monday anyhow, if we want to do 2 meetings in the month.
I would suggest that we don't meet 3 times next month if we can help it. Just because
That's fine.
we've been, I don't think that we have, I think that we can do without that. So I would say that if we're gonna meet that Wednesday for appointments, maybe we should extend that meeting a little bit more than just appointments and do what we would do for one of our 2 semi-monthly meetings. Or we don't do appointments until the following Monday, when we would have the semi-monthly meeting.
So what are your thoughts? If we do it on a Wednesday, the appointments will it'll be more like a regular meeting.
It'll be a quick meeting.
Not if we do it with other items.
Oh, wait, okay.
It won't be, it'll be the new normal that we're shooting for.
Okay.
2 meetings a month.
Yeah.
I think that you should have a meeting on Wednesday, and that should be your appointment meeting, and I think you might also want to consider processing your thoughts from town meeting.
Yep.
And not start up our agenda might be, we don't know what's going to arise from that.
That's true.
That could maybe be a direction for us. Wednesday. So I guess Wednesday night, but it may be more than just appointments.
Okay.
I think that's what we're hearing.
Uh,
Is there anything else on the 25th that you want to, as far as the legislators coming in?
The legislators are coming in. We're talking about inviting Scott from Cheslov, their new director. And Roger Marcoux has been interested in getting a little bit involved in the healthcare access in Johnson. So we're going to invite Roger also, kind of get a few of the players around the table to talk about healthcare access.
Tell me what Cheslov is.
Community Health Services of Lamoille Valley.
There'll be a little blip about this on Front Porch Forum, probably, right?
Yes, I expect so.
Okay. Because there could be a lot of people turning out for that.
Should be some important thing.
And Valerie Valcourt from State Department of Health has been very active in this so far, and she's going to be invited as well. So it's a good opportunity for the board to get more familiar with the discussion as it's been so far, and some opportunities to help steer as well.
Anybody got any questions on that?
Yep.
Buckle up.
Related, do we want to take the treasurer's report before we?
Oh, yes, are you ready? You're on there. You didn't have anything for us to sign for order?
I got
Oh,
it.
she's got- Okay. How'd the meeting go up there?
Slow.
Slow?
Good turnout, or? No?
Johnson has 5 people.
Aye.
Excluded 2 board members out of 5,
Yeah.
which I don't think is very good.
Mm-mm.
Budget status report. To date, we are 58% of budget. And this set of orders is close to $100,000 or over with the, we're paying the school bill
Oh,
money after the 3rd installment of taxes. And delinquent taxes. Angela looks like she's might be trying to schedule a tax sale for the end of March.
okay.
And we're down to less than a page.
Yeah. That's
Sweet.
good. 16,000 total?
Yep.
You know, when people ask about that at town meeting, wait, I don't think they get the message that, like, we do everything we can within the law to collect every penny that we can. I think that's all they really want to hear. They want to hear
And
about.
this is one of the years that's been the lowest percentage in a while.
Yeah, this is pretty low.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, you know, several of these, well, majority of these are trailers.
There's nothing, only large acreage is at the top.
And there's one other house, 2 houses, no, yeah,
But the one with the most acreage is at the top of the
yeah.
list.
That goes just about every year to the 11th hour.
Yep.
Well, I think it's great that you do the front porch forum posts, and I don't know, just, I appreciate it.
And current taxes were due last week.
Thank you.
And to date, we're at 75% collected, which is slightly less than the past 2 years. But it's in with 1.5%. And the listers, or the assessors gave me a certificate of no appeal or suit pending. They need this for their grand list, and we do not have any suits that went to Superior Court or to the state. And that needs
Here.
all the signatures of the board.
Okay.
You need a motion?
Are you happy with the assessors?
Mhm.
That's when we have to move on? Okay. What's the board's pleasure?
What's the motion, Rosemary? Sorry, I was,
To accept the certificate for no appeals or suits pending.
okay. That.
That was your motion.
That was my motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
And I've got 2 liquor licenses, one for Maplefield and one for JSC.
JSC. And you?
It's says JC here,
Yeah.
APA Tenants Hall.
Is it a special event at Johnson, or?
No, they're regular liquor license for the year.
Motion to approve both. With our usual, we send a usual letter,
Yep.
with our usual letter.
Got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in, and that, your motion was for both of them, right?
Correct.
Okay. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
In your packet, I put a response that NEMRIC, our computer software people issued regarding the possible security breach that could happen. And as far as I know, there's been no security breach for any town at all.
Okay.
And our new IT people, they sent a generic invitation saying that the town of Johnson is part of their group.
Mhm.
I think they're just trying to facilitate more business.
Oh,
I haven't asked them specifically if this is stuff they've been checking, but I can do that.
is that it?
So those vulnerabilities have been patched then at this point?
Yes. The town report should be going out any day now.
Cool.
Do we mail them out, or do they directly get mailed?
Directly.
Okay.
Haven't seen any on the street yet.
No.
I think they'd be over.
And Rosemary, did you get the correction? We missed 2 justices of the peace.
The 2 new ones?
Yes, or I don't know if it was the 2 new ones. Mike knows who we missed.
Okay.
In the town report?
Yeah.
So they don't start office until February 3rd.
So you wouldn't have listed them?
I can't remember, thought I did, maybe I
Yeah.
did.
Mike, who were the 2 individuals that we missed for the justice of the peace?
Mike Darling, and I know that's the Republican. I don't know who the Democrat is.
Anything else?
That's all.
Anybody got anything else for Rosemary? Thank you, and welcome back. Let's see, division of topics.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about, if we're having 2 meetings a month, to get into a little bit more details about, maybe not a hard and fast rule of what we're always going to do one meeting versus the other, but to try and steer it a little bit for, these kinds of things will come up more often on the first Monday, and certain things will come up more often on the third Monday. I was thinking, what could be a pretty helpful delineation could be informational versus action items. That we have, we kind of have the meeting on the third Monday, which is going to be televised, being more of the action items. That we learn about stuff that's before us earlier in the month, and then try and act and execute that on the third Monday, at our regular time where people are used to coming to see. That we should get more, that should make it possible for people to make public comments when they need to. We shouldn't surprise anybody that way with a new action. But I wanted to solicit some
I know Rosemary had spoke about maybe having that opportunity to be able to get the orders more orderly signed, so we might have two treasurers, or maybe a mini version treasurer's report with some orders that they need to be signed, liquor licenses, that sort of thing. And along your same theme, I'd like to see our third Monday staying pretty much to the traditional meeting format we got, and using that first Monday for those items that need to take more time. You know, we need to absorb more. If we'd had the legislators here, that would have been a good time there for that first Monday, because we know they're gonna take a half hour to an hour. Even these Eldreds, you know, that's a half hour of our time when we don't have a lot of luxury of time in our regular meeting. Any of those big ticket items, I think would make more sense to have them on, you know, where you could deal maybe only 2 or 3 items, but you really get into them. And then saving our regular meeting for most of these formal things that we have to do.
How significant is our public access viewerage?
I don't have numbers on it, but I do hear from reasonable, I hear from folks that they watch it when it airs, and that they occasionally will look things up on the website.
I sometimes think that, you know, if you have, I think that this discussion shouldn't be separated from the votes a lot of times. You know, it's like the only handle it once rule, which I think aligns with what you're saying.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, this is all uncharted ground,
Yeah.
territory for us, so we may try it one way and see it's not working.
I was gonna say, it's probably gonna be a work in progress.
Yeah.
I think what you said was pretty
Makes
good.
Yeah.
sense, okay. So,
With that being said, don't you think we want to, you know, Rosemary, what helps her procedurally and what helps Brian procedurally, and yet keeps us to, you know, vaguely the substantive stuff that we do, you know? I don't, you know, I think it will be a work in progress, but I think, I guess I wasn't leaning towards your separation, you know? But I think that we ought to try, make your job easier and not make it more complicated by dividing up. So that would be one of the primary things, is to ease your job and not make you prepare twice to be on stage, you know, to the same extent.
but no matter what we do, there's quite a bit of prep work that he has to
Oh, yeah,
do for whichever meeting we have.
just warning and aligning and everything.
And a lot of the background information on each of the items, you know, he has to dog all month. So it will be more work in some ways for you
It'll,
guys.
to a degree. You know, but some of these, I'm thinking of it that we might sometimes have items that show up on both meetings. So that we might show up and have a discussion about something with no expectation that we're gonna take action on it that night. But that's an opportunity to make sure that everybody has questions answered. And then at the next meeting, act. That way it's, I think that might speed up some of our discussions. And it wouldn't require a great deal more preparation on my part. And it might help, yeah, it might help things get to be a little bit easier. But, you know, I keep a running list of topics every month. And I can just continue to do that and then part them out monthly based on kind of time and how well developed they are. So
We all set?
we'll try it and we'll see.
See how it goes. Okay, next one's just informational,
Yep.
sheriff's report. Any update on the industrial park?
We did not receive the municipal planning grant. So that was gonna be for final engineering on the project. We do have another grant that we're in process for the EDA, which is the Economic Development Agency. Federal loan program with a rolling date. We're also coming up on the, that one can go for both construction funds and non-construction funds. So we're gonna apply for a segment of final engineering, and we had planned on using a portion of money from them for construction costs. We'll also be going out to the Northern Borders Regional Grant for the majority of our construction costs.
I saw they just expanded northern borders to the whole state,
Yes.
which creates more competition for us.
Presumably, it will be a little bit more competition. We're familiar with and familiar to quite a few of their board members. So we're well suited for the Northern Borders Grant.
Good.
I mean, it's not a slam dunk, but the municipal planning grant, we were not especially well suited for them. It was, their main focus is municipal plans. So everything that's not a municipal plan gets to divide up a pretty small portion of their funding. And most of what's left over gets apportioned to designated downtowns. And our industrial park is outside the designated downtown, so we were eligible for that one, but we were not a good fit. But I was hopeful for it because it would have been a good source, and like I said, we were eligible. It met some of their guidelines and some of their goals.
On call.
So on-call pay, I talked to the highway department. They have come back with another number. The big hitching point for them that merits some discussion, I think, is to talk in a little bit more detail about something, the 8 hours and then home policy that the board has adopted. That is pretty unpopular with the highway department. And they're willing to work with it, but their view of the on-call pay is very much tied up with that policy. I know that's a settled matter to the board, but it's something that they would really like us to consider and discuss when we're thinking about on-call pay. So they have asked for $190 a week.
And this was a few boards ago, that policy of 8 hours and then go home, policy that came out of the select board. It was a way to give the highway foreman some flexibility on how to manage his overtime hours, because we just can't have unlimited overtime hours. If there wasn't the 8 hours and you go home, what tools are there gonna be for the foreman? Not having them come in on certain days?
Well, for the crew's response, I think would be that they're sympathetic, but that's not really their concern. That they want to work with us, but if we don't have enough, if we can't afford to pay them their overtime hours, then they'd like to see us appropriate more money for overtime.
They basically feel like they're entitled to overtime, that it's just guaranteed that that's what they need to be paid every year?
Well, I wouldn't say that they're entitled to a specific amount, they don't feel that they're entitled to a specific amount of overtime, but they feel that the home after 8 hours is limiting how much overtime they are eligible for. On a year like this year, they're going to be getting the full amount that we budgeted for and then some likely. But on another year, that might not be the case. If they routinely went home after 8 hours and there were not as many emergencies and weekends and nights out, that it would, you know.
Go ahead.
I just figured this was coming up, so I picked an employee out of our director's orders that we signed. And I'm assuming on 213 paycheck, 872.91, that's pretty close to a normal week. 125, 1789.06, 130, 1399.90, 28, $1,497.19. I would say that they're getting their overtime and then some. I think it's a pretty good year for overtime. This is one employee. So,
But in a year where, if we were going by if we weren't limiting ourselves to those 8 hours a day, when we didn't need overtime, then we would be like way overblown on our overtime in a year like this, right?
Yes.
Well, that's a,
They're not, they're fine with keeping the policy,
yeah.
but they'd like us to remember and consider that policy when we're talking about the on-call pay.
Okay. Got it.
That it is, they feel that it's negatively impacting what they can take home.
That was the principle, wasn't it?
It is, basically. It is a cost control measure for us, which does mean that they're taking home less.
It was also, besides being a cost control, it was assumed that there wasn't work necessarily for them to be doing. We had it, you know.
If at all possible.
The utility.
If we can predict it, if at all possible, we don't send them home if we think we're going to have to call them back later in the same night. That if we think that it's going to be, you know, if they finish at 3 o'clock and we think, you know, if they finish at 2 o'clock and we think that they're going to need to go out again at 3 or 4 o'clock, we typically don't send them home for something like that. We'll try and do another pass at the end of business, and that's where a lot of our overtime ends up coming in. But it has happened sometimes where we've sent them home where we didn't think it was going to get that bad that quickly, you know, where we thought it might happen late enough at night that the roads could keep until they go out again in the morning.
Rosemary, since we've had this policy of 8 hours go home, for all these years, is there any year that they didn't max out their overtime, even with that policy? So even with that policy, they've maxed out their overtime every year. There is no, I mean, it just happens.
as I said at our last meeting, this was a condition of employment. When they took the job, they knew what the policy was. Okay, and so now you've got a group that wants to change the policy, even though they accepted the policy as a condition of employment.
Right, the policy was in place when we hired Jason, was it not?
Well, it's been in place for
Yeah.
10 years.
Jason doesn't believe so.
It hasn't been 10 years, it's been since I've been on the board, I believe.
Okay, 8 years? I don't know, it's been a number of years.
I believe Jason was, so, but, yeah, okay. Anyway, that doesn't seem to be the sticking, but they're fine with that.
They're-
We're fine with that. We're gonna keep that in place.
We're gonna keep that.
They just want us to consider it when
When we're talking about the on-call pay and the board's reaction is that the on-call pay is very high. Think about if we didn't have that, if we didn't have the home after 8 hours as part of it, that would be, they'd like them to be connected when we're thinking about how much money are we spending on them giving up the 4-hour call-in in addition to taking the home after 8 hours.
Well, so they're not fine with it, they just view it as a trade item.
They would like us to view it as a trade item.
So where does this stand with our budget for next year?
We never budgeted for,
We can't afford this for our budget for next year. I think that this is a farther into the future discussion, that we were, that we didn't budget for it, the discussion was not far enough along for us to have a realistic number for this.
I mean, this came up, when this came up last month, they'd asked for $200 a week, right?
Yes.
And the board said that's a non-starter. Now they've dropped it by $10 a week. So that's,
They think that's gonna make a difference.
so my personal position on that would be unchanged with the $10 difference. But
We had an executive session tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That wouldn't be appropriate discussion for this specific topic.
I understand. Yeah.
so I guess I'm gonna poll the board. I think you already voiced it. It's not really a starter for me.
I don't think that I would want to discuss something like this till we go through town meeting and see what comes out there. And because I'm not convinced that I understand the utility of it from their point of view, but I don't understand it from the town's point of view and the affordability.
You kind of got I read off a compensation for one employee at $1,800 a week. Granted, there's overtime in there and time away from family and everything, but $1,800 is a pretty good sized check.
I think it's a clear message to take back. It's a non-starter. Anything else? If not,
I'd like to give this a little bit more discussion if the board's willing.
okay.
Because I think that if we return that this is a non-starter, I think that it's, and that's full stop, then I don't think that'll be very helpful.
Did last time you show them the comparables of other towns?
They believe that that too much goes into what they do that other towns don't, and that the other towns' workloads are not really comparable with ours. So they'd like it to be a little bit different discussion.
in what ways
Yeah.
are they not comparable?
Um,
And you're in a weird position here because so let us know. I
It's-
feel like they should be here representing themselves, I think.
Well, that's kind of ultimately what I think might be the most helpful is maybe rather than saying it's a non-starter, maybe we do get together and try to have a discussion about it.
Sure.
That I think that acting as a go-between draws this out a great deal, and
We don't want you to be the fall guy either.
well, I'm fine with I know my role in this is when I'm with the employees, I represent the board, and when I'm with the board, I represent the employees. It's not easy, but that's the job. But I think that this is a very emotional issue in a way that I can't represent as well. And so I think it would be beneficial to have the employees and the board talk.
I think what's happening is there's a bunch of chit chat going on between our employees and some of the employees from other towns. Case in point, I talked to somebody recently that certain towns have schemes, for lack of a better term, you know, the British term, a scheme, of when overtime starts, when it stops, and on and on and on. And anyway, to make a long story short, there was one employee in one town that received approximately 100 hours of overtime in a week, okay, under their system. So you do the mathematics there, okay? And so when you hear this kind of stuff, and there's talk, I'm sure, amongst other crews, human nature would be, I'd want to get a piece of this too. You see? So, you know, I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but just kind of throwing it out there.
Well, I mean, I know some of the discussions they've had wouldn't be along those lines, but it's, Hyde Park gets brought up, that, you know, Hyde Park has home after 8 hours, and they don't have an on-call pay, but they don't come back out as often as our guys do. They don't work, you know, they're a little bit more likely to say, you know, it'll keep till morning than we are. And, that's the feeling at least. And, their overtime is not capped by the board. The road foreman can use as many overtime hours as he feels is necessary.
But I thought it was less than what we did, if I remember correctly, if I'm wrong.
There's been quite a few years where it was less. You know, that they have a pretty good handle on it, like I said, with when they go out and when they don't, their total road miles. You know, they've got enough differences where it's not the same problem for them as it is for us. But that's kind of what they mean, but there's a lot of things that go into, we can't just look at one aspect of just on-call pay and say, well, Hyde Park doesn't have on-call pay, so we don't need on-call pay. Because
when they bring up Hyde Park, do they bring it up because they're envious that they have more time off?
no, it was really just trying to point out that there are differences between them, and it's more than one
Well, there are differences
facet.
between every town, and
Yep.
every employee jumps on board with the town they're working for. You know, I mean, I went over this countless times when I was a shop steward in Morrisville. You know, they talk about GMP, well, go work for GMP. You know, they want to give you $10 an hour more, don't complain about this company, go work for GMP. You know, so I mean, people get the ability to move around if they want to. You know, don't try to bankrupt Johnson just because you want to.
And I gotta believe that this new salary schedule that we provided for them has gotta be more generous than certainly Hyde Park and probably most towns our size.
We have a generous salary package right now.
Well, what I hear is that, based on, you're here, you represent them, and when you're there, you're representing us, that seems to me to be a difficult position. I think they need to be here and be present and talk about this. I think it's a dead horse for the year with our upcoming budget, unless the townspeople point out why we ought to be spending more money and can find it for us. We're all thinking that we're not going to get there, like that. So I don't want unhappy workers. On the other hand, I think that we have, so I want to listen to them, but I also think that what we have is a schedule that's eminently fair. It's actually a floating you know, you take the job, it's a floating starting thing with guaranteed 8 hours, okay? So you don't get 4 hours and then go home, you get 8 hours, okay? Or you can go more. And I understand the difficulty of the on-call. I also understand that our duty to our taxpayers may result in our saying, gee, you guys are really good employees, I hope you stay, you know? This is what we think we can do.
Yeah.
So not a line in the sand, yes, listen, but we're kind of boxed in
So-
economically.
So maybe some point after town meeting, meet with them?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try and make the arrangements. It might be, the most convenient time might be once we're kind of through the winter and they can make an evening meeting. You know, I'd hate to schedule something and then they can't make it, or, you know, make them stay up late enough where it's difficult for us to send them out again in the morning.
So, yeah, maybe April or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, at least float with them our thoughts.
Yeah.
Go from there. Okay, skip the executive session, come back to it. Update on the merger study?
So for the merger study, it is posted again for the remainder of the month. I think it's,
Any inquiries or?
I've had, we haven't received anything, but I've received a couple questions from consultants asking for clarification about the funding, about the upper limit. They've indicated to me that they think that our scope of work is on the order of $20,000 to $40,000.
What'd I tell you?
I've encouraged them to submit a proposal, you know, that, you know, whether we go out for grant funding, whether we explore alternatives, whatever we do with it, having more information is going to be very helpful for us.
I think we need to go with the college students. Line one of those up.
Did you reach out to them?
They are interested. Once this application period closes and we review the applications that we have, that'll be an appropriate time to make that decision of whether we're going to take one of the applications that we received or if we're going to pursue a different path.
The town doesn't have the money to go that far.
No.
No. No,
And the voters wouldn't want us anyway to do that.
you know, we might be able to apply for a grant or something that we can use the amount we budgeted for with the town and the village to pay for a local match. But we'll see.
UVM or Dartmouth study would be perfect.
We'll have to certainly scale back the expectations.
Yeah.
But,
If we decide to go that route, my idea would be, kind of my ideal vision for this would be Meredith and I work with the coordinator from the college and determine a scope of work that they can complete, and then the board and the trustees vote up or down on that proposal, rather than having the boards directly involved along with the college. I think it would be very difficult to write a scope of work with that large of a committee.
Right.
And
Okay.
especially one as tightly constrained as this is gonna have to be.
Next thing's Cambridge Select Board's position on the joining the Unified School District. I
So you
honored their
printed-
request to bring it to the board. I would, however, not necessarily be in favor of it, but I brought it before the board. What's the board's pleasure?
Kind of a little too late.
It is something they are very hot on, I know,
The election's tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, yeah. George Putnam certainly lobbied myself down in Montpelier the other day against it. I didn't realize they were going to take a formal position, but
I think that we would refer it to if we had a school board, to our school board.
I mean, we don't really have a pony in this race. Either way, it's not really our issue, but
In that spirit, Doug, I forwarded the email when Eric sent it to us. I forwarded the email to our board members, the board reps from Johnson and Dave Manning. I didn't hear back from anyone except Dave Manning, who sent us this piece of paper that has the ballot language on one side and the tax implication on the other. You can see that Dave's comment was only that what's in the best interest of the Johnson voters is maybe a little different than what's in the best interest of the Cambridge voters. And I think this chart shows that theoretically we'd be seeing a decrease in the tax rate, and Cambridge would be seeing a slight increase.
any further comments on that?
Paper's cheap, though.
Yes, it sure is. It's, whenever I see something,
Not as cheap as it should be.
We got 2 resignations.
Yes. We have received 2 resignations. So while I get it's Laura Bronca from Conservation Commission
As well as Green Up Coordinator.
and our Green Up Coordinator.
Really?
The Conservation Commission took that, was able to perform last year. I'm gonna check with them and make sure that they're still kind of, as a committee, able to do that. Or we may be looking for a new Green Up Coordinator fast. And then the other one was Jane, what's Jane's last name?
Marshall.
Jane Marshall from the Historical Society.
Oh,
What's the board's pleasure?
I don't know that you need to take an
Deniable.
action on,
We usually do.
okay.
Move we accept them
Second.
And send them,
and thank them.
send them letters of
Yep.
thank you, if you wouldn't mind, Brian,
Yeah.
for their service. Got a motion? Did we have a second? You got a second? Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
And then I will post the vacancies for those 2 and for the last seat on the broadband service.
Perfect. And you want to just give a update on that watershed grant that you applied for?
The water, the Vermont River Conservancy came to us a little bit last minute about a grant for some trail improvements at Beard Recreation Park. And since the board was not going to have an opportunity to meet in time, I sent out a letter focused on kind of the history of our relationship with them and our general support of their organization. There is no financial commitment for Johnson, so I don't think it.
Wasn't too much exposure and was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So just an FYI to the board.
okay.
Real quickly, I just wanted, in case any of you didn't know, I did send the email out. The Silver Jacket Program of CREL, we were not approved the funding when it went to DC last fall. I only found that out 2 weeks ago, I guess now. I've been in contact with Reggie Bellevue from Swanton. He was not aware until I told him that we didn't get it. Now he has gone to the same flood seminar and Ice Jam seminar that I went to. He went last Thursday. I'll touch base with him again. He was gonna talk to Jim Rose. We'll try to coordinate process going forward on when and how we should reach out to our congressional leaders about helping us with this next funding cycle. We're the top priority for the state of Vermont in the application process through CREL. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that Vermont rises to the top of the New England states. But any help the congressional leaders can give us for skidding the, or greasing the skids down there in DC can only serve to help us. So obviously we'll try to be coordinated with Swanton on that as we are in this together. That's about all I got right now on that. Unless anybody's got anything else, would entertain a motion to go into executive session, to deal with personnel issue. Inviting Brian and Rosemary.
Move that we go into executive session as permitted by VSA 313A4.
Second.
Inviting Rosemary and
Invite
Brian.
Rosemary and Brian.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Show us an executive session at 9:41.